Hi there and welcome back to the channel. Today we're having a conversation with Varsha Agarwal from UTS. So Varsha is a senior project manager and Varsha will talk to us about a server to cloud migration for Jira software and Confluence that was recently completed. So we'll learn about what were the requirements, what were the learnings, how did the project go. So I think it's really useful content for anyone who's thinking about doing a server to cloud migration. I think you'll enjoy it. So let's go to that interview now. And remember, if you're finding these videos useful, please subscribe, and that will help us grow the channel. So let's go over to Varsha now.
So, hi, my name is Varsha, and I'm a senior project manager at UTS. And I recently completed the Atlassian migration to the cloud with the help of Systemology.
Perfect. So look, thanks for joining us today, Varsha. So in the context of that migration, then when you were looking to get started, what were those requirements for the migration and also the requirements for finding the right partner?
Yep, so we went out to the market looking for a partner that had extensive knowledge of Atlassian as well as an experience in doing a migration for a large business. We've been using on-prem for many years, albeit not very correctly, and we were also out of support. And so there was a lot of bespoke and some complexities around the way we had set things up that we knew we needed an experienced partner to help us with for the migration. And when Systemology came back with its response amongst the other partners, we noticed that you were the director who responded directly back to us, which really showed us that Systemology engages at an intimate level, that you're really interested in the engagement, how important you consider the relationship with the client. And also you guys were, hit the brief on the knowledge and the experience aspect of it.
Great. So then when you moved through the migration, what was the effort that your team needed to apply during the migration, and was it anything that was unexpected?
There was no unexpected as such effort from the team. There was a lot of upfront effort in organizing access to our internal systems and servers for the Systemology consultant. And obviously that's something only we can do as a company. So that was to be expected. And given how extensive our protocols and processes are within UTS and the governance, that took a little bit of time to get the right permissions and the right approvals to provide the consultant with production access to a lot of our systems. But it worked out. And then after that, a lot of our effort was involved in making decisions when it came to what sort of processes we want to follow, whether or not we want to migrate certain applications or certain pages or certain users. And a lot of that was decisions we couldn't make as a project team, and we had to carry up into our higher stakeholders. And so that process took a little bit of time, a little bit of involvement from a project management side. But ultimately, a lot of the technical support was around the access and also some support around the production changes, just as in case something goes wrong in our server kind of side.
Okay, so then you're saying most of the effort was upfront and then kind of a light touch for the rest of it?
Yeah, correct. Eventually, once we decided on a migration plan forward, and we decided what we were going to do, essentially Systemology handled all of it. We were involved obviously in the testing, so we had to organize the testing from our end, provision users with the access, and just make sure that they knew what they were doing, and the communications on our end. So that was where our focus was from a UTS side.
What was it like to work with a partner? And I kind of mean like, compared to maybe trying to do it yourself. I mean, it's a common thing for customers to try and rationalize, do I do this migration with my internal team? Do I go out and use a partner? What was that experience like?
Yeah, I can definitely see pros and cons to both using a partner or doing it internally. We personally didn't have the skills or experience to do the migration internally in the quick turnaround time frame that we had. If we had maybe a year to do it, we could have trained somebody, upskilled them, and then done it, but we only had a couple of months. On top of that, investing time in upskilling someone on how to migrate when it's an activity you'll really just do once, most likely didn't seem as good of an investment opportunity as opposed to just hiring a consultant to come in, get it done, and leave. There's also the agnostic view where the consultant could be a little bit ruthless in what not to migrate, what are the best ways that Atlassian recommend for companies to work without having the nostalgia of the ways we used to work kind of embedded into it. Sometimes when you've been working with the system for a long time, you get a bit married to the processes. It's good to have an objective view of what's the best way to work from an external perspective. And yeah, essentially it was just always there for support. And internally, a lot of our resources got pulled into other things and they got quite busy. And should a priority one happen, everyone had to jump on that. So it was really nice to have a consultant who didn't have any of those dependencies. We didn't have the risk of them not being available because they were 100% dedicated to the project. So that was a really big comfort to have.
Interesting. Okay, and so did the migration deliver the outcomes that you needed?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our outcome was to deliver everything without any loss of data or users, and that worked. In terms of our testing, everything's there, everything migrated across, and so the outcome was achieved in that respect.
What would you do differently if you could?
Yeah. So before even considering the migration or doing the migration, the biggest thing is to speak to the users of the platform and really extensively find out what you may or may not lose or what may change once you move to the cloud. We didn't realize, for example, that a lot of the functions that people were able to do within our on-prem was because they were an admin, because we had at that point just made everyone admin because nobody was owning the system. And so a lot of people got used to the features. And whilst we knew we were removing the admin access, we weren't aware of the impact that would have to their capabilities. And so once users became just a regular user in the cloud, all of a sudden they couldn't do 90% of the things that they were used to. And once someone gets really used to going nitty gritty, making bespoke configurations and workflows and managing, 30 different user groups for one page, and then they couldn't do that anymore, it became a really big point of contention. And I'm sure like we would have moved regardless, even if we knew. But the good thing is we could have really brought the user along on the journey with us for the last 3 months when we started the migration and had them come up with alternatives and better ways of working, rather than once it was all migrated and there was nothing we could change, and then they found everything out and now they're really struggling with having to come to terms with the fact that they don't have that access anymore. Initially, they thought it was a limitation of the cloud. Later on, we had to say it's not a limitation of the cloud, it's just you used to have admin access, now you don't. And so I would say biggest thing before you migrate or even think about migrating, really talk to your users. And when you're doing testing, when we do get to UAT, we had actually made everyone org admin as a tester. And so everything worked great and they didn't have any problems. We really should have had UAT testers in all different levels of permissions and all different levels of groups to test what sort of permissions and what sort of features you get as just a regular user, as opposed to an org admin, because that's obviously most of our users would just be regular. And so those are some key learnings from the project that we really, really want to push out to everyone and make sure before you're considering any migration, change management is just the biggest aspect of it. Because you think, oh yeah, it looks kind of the same, the UI is similar, people won't really care, but features are very, very different. And in terms of cloud, Atlassian have a lot of tickets that they're watching, a lot of tickets that we're hoping they will put in their development roadmap for the future. But if they're not already there, it's tough.
Yeah. Interesting. That's interesting. So then are there any other pieces of advice you'd give to people thinking about migration?
I think absolutely do it. Using the cloud ultimately has really helped us with our access management. It's really helped us clean things up. It's a lot more secure. We had so many holes in our on-prem. So being on cloud, it's really nice that it is secure. It's an AWS and it's protected by Atlassian and it's covered by Atlassian liabilities, which is really helpful rather than having, the onus fall on our own security team who have many other things to do. So I highly recommend it, but ultimately my biggest piece of advice is to just chat to those users and understand the changes and the differences that they're going to face when they move to a cloud environment.
Perfect, perfect. All right, well, look, that's great, Varsha. Thanks so much for joining us on the channel today. We'll wrap it up. Thanks again.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay, so that's it for today. I hope you found that content useful. Feel free to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.